And now for something completely different. Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today we are reviewing Shotguns and Sorcery. I didn't know about this. A friend of mine, Jimmy Palamidon, introduced me to it, and I pretty much devoured the available material. There is a series of books and short stories you can get as an omnibus edition from Kindle. There is also this role-playing game. Shockingly, it's not a Savage Worlds game. What's it doing in this review set then? This uses Cypher, a game that I never understood all that well, but actually, again, because of Jimmy Palamidon, I now have played it a couple times and I think I understand it well enough to run it. This is not urban fantasy, because urban fantasy implies a significant chunk of our reality being included in there, i.e. Dresden Files, Iron Druid. So it is, however, a fantasy urban game. What the hell does that mean? Well, what it means, children, is that it is a fantasy game. You've got elves, dwarves, halflings, humans, all living together, and they live in one massive city. How big is the city? It's never expressly said, but it is built around in and on a mountain roughly the size of Everest. The backstory here is it was a fantasy world where a necromancer named the Ruler of the Dead rose to power. She pretty much took over everything. There was a wave of survivors fleeing in front of her, and they had the bright idea to go to the biggest mountain in the world and talk to the biggest dragon. And they agreed to become the dragon's loving servants, sometimes meals, and essentially do whatever the dragon said if it protected them from the Ruler of the Dead. So a city got built in and around its mountain. At the very top of the mountain is the dragon's lair and everything you'd associate with it. And then the rest of the city is gentrified, racified, based on who you are. So at the very top, there's the dragon. Next are the elves. Elves in here are not the polite, chaotic, environmentalist Democrats that you see in most other games. These elves are, frankly, assholes. They are racist, jingoistic, and generally unpleasant to the extreme. They also live for a very, very long time. So underneath the elven reaches in their forest is the stronghold, which is occupied by dwarves. The dwarves in here have an almost organized crime or cartel feel about them. There's something very grim and gruesome about them. And you get inside. But there are also heroic dwarves that don't have a whole lot to do with it. They just want to get through their day digging a hole. So underneath the stronghold is Gnome Town. I'll let you guess who lives there. The big borough is the halflings. The village is where all the humans live. And finally, there's Goblin Town down around the base. It's a fascinating setting, actually. There's Wizard's Way, which is sort of the wizarding academy on one side. Then there is the Garret, which is the big prison that no one ever escapes from. Unless you're a character in the book, maybe. This is a lot of game to take in and digest, but it is absolutely fascinating. When we played it, I played a wizard PI who won, and because it's Cypher, let me back up from that a little bit. Because it is Cypher, it has the standard character generation of you are an adjective, noun, that verbs. The problem is, well, not the problem, what adds in now is part of that adjective in there involves your race. So elves have different characteristics than dwarves, halflings, gnomes, etc. All the way down to goblins and orcs. There are three of the types, which is sort of the what you do. There is the freelance, which is sort of your explorer, if you're familiar with Cypher, or just a jack of all trades, probably the biggest, broadest application of skills. There's a veteran that is a warrior, and finally a wizard that wizens. Now, the character I played in this was a hard-boiled human wizard who solves mysteries. That was my descriptor at the back end of it. All right, my daughter Emma, when she played in this, played I forget the whole thing, but she was basically the femme fatale you see in almost every noir film. And like, she was a lounge singer, she was a performer, and I know she was a freelance. And so she was just basically, she had a little ladder to crawl up on the piano so she could pour her way across it, a la the Fabulous Baker Boys. And the other player was an elven veteran who was essentially a monk who was her bodyguard. In case you haven't picked up on it, this game has a very strong noir feel and sensibility. I mean, you have a dock into the river, you've got misty areas, a single lone gunshot sort of punctuates the tragedy that's been going on. If you read the books, the setting changes fundamentally, actually completely, by the end of the books. I recommend the books. Matt Forbeck is he's the writer of the books. The game came along a little bit later. I'm surprised it wasn't in Savage Worlds. I know you're all groaning and rolling your eyes, etc. Because Forbeck has a history with Shane Hensley, and he's done some Savage World stuff before, but it really fits nicely with the Cypher System. It fits in quite nicely. So you can have wizards alongside firearms. There are rules for each. You can have magic firearms in this. Why not? It is a lot of politics. It's a lot of racial shenanigans going on behind the scenes. There's the dragon who is over all of it and who has his claws in virtually everything. So what else can I tell you about Shotguns and Sorcery? Get it. I'm serious. Get the PDF. Get the real thing. It's a fantastic game. I absolutely love it. And if I knew how to do Cypher better on Roll20, I'd be playing it right now. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming. And it's good to be back.